Ladies and gentlemen, every great change in history has one thing in common. It started with young people who dared to disrupt the norm, from revolutionaries who fought for freedom to innovators who redefined industries. Youth has always been the driving force behind progress. But what sets them apart? It's their courage to question, their refusal to accept this is just how things are, and their relentless belief that the world can and must be better. Today I stand before you to celebrate that spirit of rebellion, not as chaos, but as the fuel for transformation. The world doesn't change by following outdated rules. It changes when the bold step forward, challenge limits, and refuse to settle for less. This is the power of youth. This is the power of disruption. And this, my friends, is your time to rise. Are you ready to dare? Are you ready to disrupt? Let's dive in. From the moment we enter the world, we are surrounded by rules, expectations, and traditions that shape our thinking. Society hands us a script telling us how to behave, what to believe, and which paths to follow. These norms are often presented as unquestionable truths, as if they have always existed and must never be challenged. Yet every major breakthrough in history has come from those who dared to question these so-called truths. The greatest minds, the boldest leaders, and the most revolutionary figures all had one thing in common. They refused to accept things as they were. They saw beyond the boundaries imposed by society and dared to ask, why and what if? This simple act of questioning the norm is where all change begins. From science to politics, from art to technology, every field has been shaped by those who challenged the status quo. When Galileo proposed that the earth revolved around the sun, he was condemned by those who insisted the opposite was true. When suffragettes demanded the right to vote, they were met with ridicule and resistance. When Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed of a world where people would judge by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin, he faced opposition from those who wanted to maintain the existing power structures. These individuals and countless others questioned the norms of their time, refusing to accept outdated beliefs as unchangeable realities. Their courage to challenge conventional wisdom changed the world forever. But questioning the norm is not always easy. Society often resists change because it finds comfort in familiarity. People are taught to accept things as they are, even if they are unjust or ineffective. Schools, workplaces, and institutions often discourage independent thinking, favoring compliance over curiosity. From an early age, children are told to sit still, follow the rules, and not cause trouble. Creativity and critical thinking can sometimes be seen as disruptions rather than strengths. The world teaches us that fitting in is safer than standing out, that obeying is easier than questioning. Yet, history has proven that those who obey blindly do not shape the future. Those who dare to challenge do. When we look at the world today, we see countless problems that demand bold solutions. Climate change, social injustice, economic inequality, and political corruption persist, not because solutions are impossible, but because too many people accept these issues as inevitable. Many believe that these challenges are simply the way the world works, and that one person cannot make a difference. This mindset is exactly what holds progress back. The truth is, change begins the moment we question why things are the way they are and whether they have to remain that way. Take technology, for example. Just a few decades ago, the idea of carrying a powerful computer in your pocket seemed impossible. But innovators questioned the norm. They refused to accept limitations and asked, why can't a phone be more than just a phone? The result was the smartphone revolution, changing the way we live, work, and communicate. Similarly, when Elon Musk questioned why space travel was reserved for government agencies, he disrupted the entire aerospace industry, proving that private companies could explore space. Every breakthrough begins with someone daring to question the limitations imposed by society. Injustice thrives when people stop questioning. When segregation was the norm, those who accepted it as an unchangeable reality contributed to its survival. But those who asked, why should people be treated differently based on their skin color, paved the way for civil rights movements that changed the world. When women were denied basic rights, those who accepted it as tradition helped maintain inequality, while those who asked, why can't women vote, work, or lead, shattered barriers. The moment we stop questioning is the moment we allow injustice to persist. Even in our personal lives, questioning the norm is essential. How often do we follow paths laid out for us without stopping to ask if they truly align with our passions and values? Many people choose careers, lifestyles, and beliefs based on what society expects of them rather than what truly fulfills them. They go to college because it is expected, not because it is necessarily the right path for them. They choose jobs based on stability rather than passion. They follow traditions without understanding their origins or relevance. Yet those who find true fulfillment in life are often the ones who dare to step back and ask, is this what I really want? The fear of questioning often comes from the fear of rejection. People worry about being judged, ridiculed, or ostracized for challenging norms. But every great disruptor in history has faced resistance. When Copernicus suggested that the Earth was not the center of the universe, he was met with disbelief. When Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, she was arrested. When young climate activists speak up today, they are often dismissed as naive or unrealistic. Yet these individuals persist because they understand that questioning the norm is the first step toward meaningful change. It is important to recognize that questioning the norm does not mean rejecting everything outright. Not all traditions or rules are harmful, and some exist for good reasons. However, blindly following without understanding is dangerous. True progress comes from critically examining beliefs, understanding their origins, and deciding whether they still hold value in today's world. It requires a balance of respect for the past and a vision for the future. Education plays a crucial role in fostering a mindset of questioning. Unfortunately, many education systems prioritize memorization over critical thinking. Students are often rewarded for giving the right answers rather than for asking insightful questions. However, the most successful individuals are not those who simply followed instructions, but those who challenged assumptions and sought better ways of doing things. Schools and institutions must encourage curiosity, debate, and the exploration of new ideas. The more we teach young minds to question, the more prepared they will be to solve the world's greatest challenges. The digital age presents both opportunities and challenges when it comes to questioning the norm. On one hand, information is more accessible than ever before. People can research, analyze, and challenge ideas from anywhere in the world. On the other hand, the rise of misinformation and echo chambers means that questioning must come with a responsibility to seek truth. It is not enough to challenge an idea simply for the sake of rebellion. It must be done with logic, evidence, and a genuine desire for progress. Critical thinking is more important now than ever, as the ability to distinguish truth from falsehood shapes the future of our society. Young people have always been at the forefront of questioning norms. Throughout history, youth movements have sparked revolutions, challenged authority, and demanded change. This is because young minds are not yet weighed down by the fear of failure or the comfort of the familiar. They are more willing to dream, to disrupt, and to challenge outdated systems. From the student protests of the past to today's climate activism and social justice movements, young people continue to lead the fight for a better world. They remind us that questioning is not an act of defiance, it is an act of hope. When individuals dare to question, they open the door to infinite possibility. Every innovation, every breakthrough, every step forward in history has begun with someone who refused to accept things as they were. The world does not belong to those who comply without thought. It belongs to those who challenge, who disrupt, and who demand better. The act of questioning is not just a rebellious act. It is the foundation of progress itself. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that shape human behavior. From an early age, we are conditioned to avoid risk, to seek safety, and to stay within the boundaries that society has set for us. Fear whispers in our ears, telling us that failure is dangerous, that standing out is risky, and that challenging the norm will lead to rejection. But if history has taught us anything, it is that fearlessness is the key to change. Every great leader, innovator, and revolutionary was faced with fear, but chose to push forward anyway. It is not that they had no fear, it is that they refused to let fear control them. Embracing fearlessness does not mean acting without caution, but rather recognizing that fear is often the biggest obstacle between us and our potential. The world is shaped by those who have the courage to step beyond what is comfortable. When we look at the individuals who have changed history, we see a pattern. They were all willing to take risks that others were too afraid to take. When Malala Yousafzai stood up for girls' education, despite the threats against her life, she demonstrated fearlessness in the face of oppression. When Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before successfully inventing the light bulb, he proved that fear of failure should never outweigh the desire to succeed. When Steve Jobs was fired from his own company, he could have allowed fear to defeat him, but instead he used that setback as motivation to come back stronger. These stories remind us that fear is universal, but so is the power to overcome it. Society often discourages fearlessness because it disrupts the status quo. People who take risks are seen as unpredictable, and unpredictability makes those in power uncomfortable. Schools teach students to follow instructions rather than challenge ideas. Workplaces encourage employees to fit in rather than stand out. Even within families and communities, individuals are often pressured to conform rather than explore their unique passions and ambitions. Yet every breakthrough in human progress has come from someone who refused to be paralyzed by fear. The most successful people in the world are not necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They are the ones who had the courage to take action despite uncertainty. Fearlessness is not about recklessness. It is not about ignoring risks or acting without thought. True fearlessness comes from understanding the risks, accepting the possibility of failure, and moving forward anyway. It is about having the confidence to believe that no matter what happens, you will find a way to rise again. When Elon Musk invested nearly all his money into Tesla and SpaceX, many thought he was making a reckless decision. His companies were on the verge of collapse and he could have lost everything. But instead of giving in to fear, he persisted, and today his ventures have transformed the automotive and space industries. This kind of resilience is only possible when one chooses to embrace fearlessness instead of being ruled by doubt. One of the greatest barriers to fearlessness is the fear of failure. Society teaches us to avoid failure at all costs, as if making mistakes is something to be ashamed of. In reality, failure is one of the most valuable teachers. Every failure provides an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to improve. Many of the most successful individuals have failed far more times than they have succeeded. J.K. Rowling was rejected by multiple publishers before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. Walt Disney was told he lacked creativity before he built an empire. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job before becoming one of the most influential media figures in the world. These individuals did not let failure define them. They understood that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the journey to success. Another major obstacle to fearlessness is the fear of judgment. People often hold themselves back because they worry about what others will think. They fear criticism, rejection, and being perceived as different. But the reality is that no matter what you do, there will always be people who doubt you, criticize you, or try to bring you down. The most important lesson in fearlessness is learning that the opinions of others should never have more power over you than your own belief in yourself. The greatest minds in history have all faced skepticism and ridicule. When the Wright brothers attempted to build a flying machine, people laughed at them. When Gandhi pursued nonviolent resistance, many thought he was naive. When Serena Williams broke barriers in the tennis world, she faced endless scrutiny. Yet none of these individuals allowed the fear of judgment to stop them from achieving greatness. Fearlessness is also about taking initiative. Many people have great ideas but never act on them because they are afraid of the unknown. They wait for the right time, the perfect opportunity, or the moment when they feel completely ready. But the truth is, no one ever feels 100% ready for something new. The perfect moment does not exist. It is created by those who take action despite their doubt. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not intelligence or luck. It is the willingness to start before feeling fully prepared. Every entrepreneur who has built a successful company, every artist who has created something meaningful, every activist who has led a movement started before they had all the answers. They embraced the uncertainty and took a leap of faith. One of the most inspiring examples of fearlessness can be seen in young activists who are challenging global issues today. Greta Thunberg, a teenager, took on world leaders to demand action against climate change. Emma Gonzalez, a high school student, stood up against gun violence despite facing intense criticism. These young individuals did not wait for permission to make a difference. They spoke up, took risks, and faced adversity with unwavering determination. Their fearlessness is a reminder that age, background, or experience do not define one's ability to create change. The only requirement is the courage to act. The journey to embracing fearlessness is not easy, but it is necessary for anyone who wants to make an impact. It requires stepping outside of comfort zones, challenging limitations, and refusing to settle for mediocrity. It demands resilience in the face of setbacks and an unshakable belief in the possibility of success. Fear will always be present, but those who achieve greatness understand that fear is not a stop sign, it is a challenge to be overcome.